welcome to another episode of The Sigma Show, episode 26. I'm your host, Sigma, and welcome back. Before I get into who's joining me today, because we have a relatively new face, real quick, we're going to go over the topics that we'll be talking about today. First up, and there aren't too many, to be honest, so this may be a show on the shorter side, so forgive us. I know you guys like the longer ones. But first up, there have been reports of Xbox's hardware sales as well as PlayStation's hardware sales, and both of them are pretty exciting for those companies, right? We'll talk about, I guess, what that could mean for them individually and then for the video game industry as a whole in terms of hardware sales. And keeping up with like just sales in general, or just money in general, rather. Activision CEO Bobby Kotick has reportedly halved his salary. Best known as probably the most overpaid video game CEO, has taken a significant pay cut. We'll talk about kind of the details of that and I guess whether or not it even matters because he makes a crap ton of money altogether. And Lampy already with the Bobby pockets. Yep. So to join me and talk about these topics today are Rexicon Jesse.
Hi, everybody.
And welcoming back to not necessarily this podcast. He's joined us on a previous version and, another timeline of a podcast show we've done. The Fat Stacks. What's up, Fat Stacks?
Welcome, everybody. Hello, what's happening, y'all?
Real quick, since you are kind of new to this version of the show, did you want to just let everybody know a little bit about, like, who you are, like, where they can kind of find your content and stuff, and, like, what do you like to do? Like, why would I have asked you to be here, for example? in summary. I know that's kind of a big question.
Is that for
like who are you?
Yeah.
What does it mean to be Fat Stacks?
Well, I'm just a regular guy, just like everybody else. When it comes to I'm a variety streamer on Twitch. I talk about a lot of financial stuff and investments. I've been trying to get people invested. I have been a gamer for a long time, and I've always enjoyed playing video games and the industry itself. So there's really nothing special about me. I've just been around the industry a long time. Been streaming a little bit over 3 years now.
Yeah,
going
nice.
on 4 years. So, and I've enjoyed it. I play everything and everything. I'm really not on like a one console or even PC. I also play. So,
Right,
but
yeah.
I try to lend my support whenever I can. So,
and I really appreciate you for being on the show today. It's been a long time coming. I needed to get you on here, and hopefully we'll be seeing more of you on future shows. But let's jump right into our topics, or rather, let's stall a little bit because, like I said earlier, we don't have a ton of news. So we are actually going to go first and talk about like what we've been playing, watching, listening to, etc. Because I actually have a music thing I want to bring up. But I'll defer to one of you guys because I talk a lot at the beginning of the show. Who wants to actually go first as to like what they've been experiencing this week?
Jesse, go ahead, bro.
Sure. So my partner and I finished the last episode season finale of Invincible.
Right, yeah. I've been seeing that all over my timeline. I've been trying desperately not to be spoiled.
Don't. It's good. I mean, the spoiling is like if you watch the first episode of the show, you have a pretty good idea how it's going to end. There's not like the actual ending isn't like a big twist.
Okay.
Which my partner mentioned that she really liked. She was like, yeah, it wasn't like, ooh, surprise. Like it was just a good story. And they presented it as such, and it was very enjoyable.
Solid.
And there's plenty of surprises and mystery stuff that happened throughout. And I feel like that's, from what I've read of Robert Kirkman, pretty standard. Like he loves throwing in lots of little surprises throughout. But yeah, it was a really good finale. I guess it got renewed. It got renewed for
second and third season. Yeah,
which I'm excited for. Sounds good.
Yeah, according to some of the book readers, like there's a ton more story. And I say book readers, I'm talking about Blue Bone specifically. But like, yeah, there's apparently like a ton more like content in the graphic novel story. So like, it could probably get a good couple of seasons before it's done.
They also should have renewed The Tick for a third season, but I'm not bitter. I'm not salty. It's okay. We'll move on.
I know it sounded
Man, I haven't seen that in a while.
Yeah, like how many versions of the Tick are there actually?
Ooh.
So there was the cartoon.
Yeah, I remember
Yes.
watching that a lot.
Yeah,
Right.
on MTV way back in the day.
And then the Fox made a live action series, but it only lasted like 8 episodes.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
Yeah, I know people who like it. I didn't. I thought it was okay. And then Amazon made their series. I think those are the only 3. And I just loved the Amazon series. I thought that was brilliant. So
Yeah, you have said that, and I've heard that from some other people. So eventually, I may check that out.
it's super fun. My partner and I also started and are now probably pretty close to beating the Resident Evil remake, which I'd never
Oh.
beaten before. I beat the original. I think I still own it. That game is fun. It is still a good game.
I mean, I have to take your word for it. I've never been able to get into any Resident Evil.
Last time I played Resident Evil was the first and second one, and that was about it. A long time ago.
Honey Money asked 2 or 3. Not the remake of 2 or 3, the remake of the first Resident Evil, which actually came out on the GameCube, and then they made an HD remaster for like PC and stuff.
Yeah, that was
We're
the one
playing
that
it on
that if they changed the pre-rendered backgrounds to like actual
Oh, yeah,
geometry, right?
No, it's still pre-rendered.
Oh, it's still
background,
pre-rendered. Oh,
and it's gorgeous.
oh, okay.
Like, the models haven't aged quite as well, but
yeah,
the
it's the GameCube.
backgrounds, yeah, it's
Yeah.
a GameCube game. Come on, like, let's not be too hard.
Yeah, that makes
But
sense.
the backgrounds are still gorgeous. So and the models still look nice. It's still a really fun game. And then I got to start playing Dragon's Dogma on the throwback stream on
Right.
Friday for its birthday.
that was a really funny stream for like no particular reason.
Yeah. It's like that's basically my experience from that game is that, and that just kind of continues on. Like, so
Yeah,
I'm
everyone
going
calling
to,
out Buff Hilda.
Oh yeah,
Superman
I'm
Jeff in the chat.
definitely-
We see you. What's up?
hey,
Let's go.
yeah, I really enjoyed that game. I'm gonna be playing it next week as well, and Amy's gonna be with me,
Nice.
and I am gonna have to remake the character we made because I don't like the magic system.
That you know what? That's
Like-
fair. Yeah, the magic wasn't really hitting. I
Yeah.
guess. Matter of fact, someone said that in the chat too. Like for all games where you like specialize in magic, it's like at the beginning you're like underpowered, and then by the end you're like very overpowered.
Yeah,
That seems to be like the theme. But yeah, it's just not exciting to watch, right? So
it's hard to aim, and like I play that game so I can climb on monsters, and I need to do that. Also, once you hit like level 6, you can start cross classing, so you can start doing magic later.
okay.
And I would
a
rather
fair trade-off.
start with something else and then get into that. But I will remake Buff Hilda. Don't worry,
Buff Hilda's not going anywhere, guys.
he's not going anywhere.
All right, does that about wrap it up for you and what you've been watching, playing, etc.?
You know, as far as I can remember, yes.
And feel free to chime in should you remember something else in the future. Stacks, how about you?
I started watching Yusuke, the anime. I wanted to check that out on Netflix.
Oh, the Black Samurai anime.
The Black
Did
Samurai.
that come out this week?
Yeah, it did actually.
Yeah, it did.
Ooh.
So it was actually pretty good. It reminds me a lot of, I would say it's a mixture of Ninja Scroll in a way. Not as heavy.
Yeah, I couldn't get into Ninja Scroll because it was just a little too graphic. I might be able to handle it now, but like I first saw it when I was pretty young. It was like, don't think I'm supposed to be watching this.
But the violence is there. But it's for what it is, because it's only 6 episodes.
I'm not mad at that, to be honest.
But for what it is, if you definitely like Afro Samurai, Ninja Scroll, Samurai Champloo, it does bring a little references to those type of styles. So it's it is worth watching.
Okay,
So,
nice. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that that's actually interesting and not boring. Because one of the other like bigger like black-led anime series that came out on Netflix was that show Cannon Busters. Do you remember that?
Oh man, I've heard of it. I haven't watched it, but man, that was
Yeah, it was boring. Like it had a really good intro song and outro song. Like those were lit as hell. But the actual show and plot was boring. Like it's super average. Like maybe you liked it, but like it wasn't amazing. And I guess that's fine, but it's like this is like a big thing because look at all these characters, they're all black. It's made by a black animator and such, and it was just kind of boring in my opinion. But I'm hearing good things about Yasuke, so that gets me excited.
Yeah. Yasuke. And the way how they told the story, I mean, it's interesting because when you look at history itself, there are a lot of things that people don't know, like actual black samurais.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So
yeah, because this is based on an actual person,
actual deal, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
on a real person. So, it was nice how they told the story. You know what I mean? So just to see a different perspective than your usual, because you really don't see a lot of, actually, none that I can think of other than Afro Samurai back in the day with Samuel L. Jackson, but that was more just,
Yeah, it's few and far between. I'm sure someone will be like, oh, but what about, and then what about, like, sure, you can probably name offhand examples, but it's like little dots in the sea of just all the other
Right.
content.
Right. So I've watched that, and I started to watch High Rise Invasion. That looks pretty interesting. That's another anime on Netflix.
I feel like I've been hearing about that. Is this like the gun wielding girls or something?
This is where like some high school kids get stuck in this like high rise area,
Mhm.
and these people that wear masks and they have special abilities that's drawn from their personality. So like it's a little weird, but like
Really, an
when you
anime is weird? Is that what you're
Whoa.
is that what you're trying to tell me right now?
yeah the concept of, I mean, it's like a battle royale, but the way they did it with, you have people that have killer intentions if you pick up the mask, and it brings out this type of personality.
Mm.
And it's the whole, well, you have to fight to survive type deal. But it was just something that I saw, that I heard from someone. I was like, oh, okay, just like Invincible, I haven't seen yet. I've heard about it. I might have to go check that out.
Right, yeah,
And
that's on my list.
it's pretty interesting in itself. So, but of course, that and the normal Crunchyroll stuff that comes on, a lot of people's been watching, Demon Slayer and Jujutsu.
Did Demon Slayer come back yet?
No, not yet.
No, okay.
The train,
Yeah, the Mugen Train
the
movie
movie.
came out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Mugen Train movie. Yeah, I watched that. That was pretty good. So, of course, the normal. But that I've been playing, for me, Outriders have been pretty decent. It's a nice change up from Genshin and Apex. And of course, I'm waiting on Mario Golf Super Rush. That looks pretty fun.
it does. I can't lie. I kind of want that.
So I will be picking up that for sure. That comes out June 5th.
That's
So,
still a little ways away.
Yeah, but I'm investing a lot of time in Outriders at the moment. That's pretty fun.
Nice. Okay. I've actually also played Outriders recently, but like I only get like very tiny chunks of time in it. Like I was playing with Superman Jeff, who's in the chat. He was using one of his lower ranked characters to run with me because I still haven't even broken like level 10. I don't think yet. And apparently that game doesn't really get fun until somewhere around 20 or so. I'm hearing like.
It gets insane around then.
Yeah, so like
I ain't gonna lie to you.
it's a lot of I'm trying to, because like I can see Jesse's face right now. in a lot of cases I'm the same way, right? Yeah, I was like, if it takes that long to get to the fun part, then like it's not fun, right? But like I keep hearing people talking about how fun it gets. Like Nick is can't shut up about it. Like a lot of people in the open party have been playing it nonstop, and like they're all super enjoying it. So it's like, all right, let me get to that part and then see what it's going. But like the way my time is structured to get free time to do that has not been helpful. So like by the time I get to 20, everyone's gonna be done playing. Oh, look at Nick in the chat. Who said my name? Look at the escapist official in the chat, just lurking. But yeah, I do want to get to the fun part of Outriders, because it's fun to play it with friends. Like I had fun when I was running around in it with Blue. I had fun when I was running around in it with Jeff. But I haven't yet been like, this game is fun. Like I want to go back and play this game because I think the game is fun. But I know that there's something that changes. and I'm a little worried that once I get there, I'll still be disappointed. But I want to at least get there first.
Yeah, it sounds like sunk cost fallacy to me. But
Maybe.
I don't know. I haven't played it at all. Just people being like, "Oh yeah, I spent enough time in it." Like, no, it's fun. Don't worry.
Yeah, see, it's when I started it. Let's see. Well, that and thank goodness on Xbox I didn't have to pay for it. Number one,
Right? Yeah, that's a big contributor because I probably would not have paid for this game, honestly.
But for what it's worth, the storyline and I do a lot of. I'm one of those. I just don't go straight to the storyline. I like to do side quests, a little bit of storyline and side quests. I like to.
Yeah, that I only do that if it's interesting. And Outriders, if it's anything, it is boring. Like that game, I can't even sit through those cutscenes. Like I'll be sitting there like dozing off, like, wait, this cutscene's still going. Let me just skip it. I forgot I could do that. Because like I just tune out.
Some of those cutscenes are vicious. I'm not gonna lie. So, I mean, well, compared to other games that I played, just watching on how they interact, I'm like, oh man, that's just that's rough. But.
I don't know. Like the gameplay is okay as far as I'm concerned. The story, it doesn't pull me in at all. But I mean, I'm still relatively early on, so maybe that stuff will change. But other than Outriders, what else was I playing? I tried out. I got an invite to the cloud beta stuff for PC from Xbox. So like, very quickly, like I like jumped on my browser and like launched Hot Shot Racing, which was a game like I had a ton of fun with several months back. I reviewed it for Escapist, but like I was playing it like with the open party a couple Fridays as well. And I wanted to, because it's a arcade racing game, I wanted to check if the latency and stuff worked, right? And from what I could tell, it controlled really well. The only problem was that I was using the controller to play, and I would hit certain buttons, and like menu options would pop up above the screen. Like it would open up like the right click menu, and like I'd be like, wait, what? Like I would be able to control like the options with my controller rather than the game after I would press like the trigger or something, and I couldn't figure out how to stop that from happening because I would accidentally like back out of the browser because like that would be the first option, and then the game would like stop and reload in the middle of a race. I'm like, this is unplayable. So like that was the feedback I had to leave, but it's still in beta, so hopefully that's something they figure out. Like I was playing it in the browser because I like the novelty of that. I didn't like make it full screen or anything, so I don't know if that was the problem. Fox says that didn't happen to me. That's funny. But I mean, it could be part of the problem that I was playing it like right in the browser because they said it's a browser game. I wanted them to prove that. Like, oh, I just have my controller, I have it open in the browser, I can play it while I'm doing other stuff, right? Like that was the goal, but it seemed to not like that maybe. Lampy says, I've had that before. It was Steam messing with your controller. I don't know. Like it's like if I right click on like my browser right now, like it says back, forward, reload, save as. Like that's what shows up on the screen with the controller, and like that's a little more than distracting in a racing game. But yeah. Outside of that, I played more of It Takes Two with my fiance and my son this time. I actually let both of them take control because Kia and I were playing it the last time we played. And since Starboy was here this weekend, I let them play because Starboy is actually pretty good at platformers. Like even 3D platformers, he's pretty good. And Kia is the one who's kind of learning how to do it. So we learned that Starboy does not play well with others, as which is something that I think if you've seen any of the Sigma and Sun streams, you probably already knew. Like he likes to win, he likes to be first. We have to try to drill into him like, hey, wait, or work together. So in that sense, I think it's actually a really good game to get him to understand, like, look, play this with the other person because you really can't progress unless you coordinate some. Like those new Super Mario Bros. Games that he loves so much is not like that. Like you don't have to work together to rush to the end of those levels, and oftentimes it'll get the other person killed when you just rush and go off and do your own thing. And he thinks it's funny when I die in those games, so it doesn't help the cause. But
yeah, those games are pretty interesting.
Yeah, like, they're weirdly stressful. Like that's the thing. Like you're supposed to be having fun, but like these co-op experiences make it so like you start to kind of like grate on each other's nerves, and it can be funny to watch, but like it really is a stressor. It's like this is my child, and I kind of want to just shove him off this stool next to me. Like, stop being such a jerk. But it's still fun at the end of the day. In terms of what I've been watching, I did get to the theaters for the first time since the pandemic started to watch the Demon Slayer movie, Mugen Train. I thought it was phenomenal, and mainly because it wasn't what a lot of anime movies do, where like they're essentially a filler arc, right? Like they tell you like a side story that's unrelated to the core events of the show, and like it can just live on its own, right? Like they never reference those events going forward in the actual show when you come back to it, right? This is different in that this is an actual arc. Like this was the next story beat from the actual show, like where the last season left off. They're like, oh, we're going on this Mugen Train adventure. We're gonna go meet the Fire Pillar, etc., etc. And that's what they do at the start of this. You see all those events play out like in the big screen. It was super interesting. Not certain characters got to shine in it, and others I think were kind of just there for the ride. But either way, everyone got at least one like cool moment. And overall, like if you are a fan of Demon Slayer, you kind of have to watch this at some point, like because you'll be missing context once the season does come back. So, not that that's a knock against it, because I still think it's really really good. But I don't know, the movies don't seem that scary anymore. Like everyone was socially distanced and stuff. You keep your mask on the whole time unless you're eating, and like who really eats at the movies anymore? Because their food is like $20 for a bucket of popcorn. Like what are you doing?
Yeah, it's
Very true.
Yeah, so like it felt safe. I mean, I've already got both my vaccination shots, though I still need to wait a couple more days until like I'm like fully protected. So I mean, I don't know if that's the right term. I don't want to just say that because I don't think that's how the vaccines work.
I believe you become invincible, is what the CDC
Right? Yes,
said.
I become Omni-Man, and but yeah, Jeff said I told you, like he's right because he'd gone before I did. And yeah, like it wasn't a bad experience at all. Like I didn't feel nervous about being in like, that enclosed space in the dark and people around me and stuff. So I like that it feels like there's a sense of normalcy starting to return. And that was kind of that. I guess that's not related to Mugen Train, but that kind of came along with the experience. So like they're going to be forever tied in my mind, I guess, going forward, which is nice. And then finally, just last night we watched that new Netflix movie, The Mitchells versus the Machines. It's done by the same studio that did Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Have you seen any commercials for this?
I have, yeah, and I was curious about that animation. Okay,
Like it's really good. Like
is it that Pixar?
that's the thing. It's not Pixar, but I would forgive you for thinking it was. That's how good it is. It's like it's a great movie to sit down and watch with your family. Like watch it by yourself, honestly. Like there's like a lot of fun. There's like a lot of comedy. There's a lot of like action. There's like heart in it. It kind of leans heavily on like internet culture stuff in some places, but not in a way that's like cringy. Like they get it, but they get it in a way that your mom and dad will also get it. You know what I mean? Like it's not super niche and like I don't know. Like it's really wholesome at the end of the day. Like I really really enjoyed watching that movie.
could go for a wholesome movie. That
Right?
sounds
Yeah.
cool.
Like check it out if you haven't. It's really good. Jeff is agreeing. Says yeah, JJ loved it. Comic book-esque animation.
That's cool because the animation of Into the Spider-Verse was really
Right.
top
Yeah.
notch.
This one is a little less intense. Like that one looks like straight out of comic book for most of it, and it even has like jerky frames for just its own aesthetic. This moves a lot smoother, and it's not as harsh, but it does have like tons of amazing visuals. Like it looks fantastic. So like I really really enjoyed that. I highly recommend you watch that. It's on Netflix now, like right now. So do that.
Right now.
I mean, don't do that right now because you're in the middle of watching this show. But with that, that's going to do it for what we've been playing / watching. We'll go on to our first topic right now. Both Xbox and PS5 have released some numbers in terms of like hardware sales, right? So I guess let's start with Xbox because they're they're usually number 2 when it comes to this rivalry. But apparently, in their first full quarter since they're releasing the Xbox Series X, their revenue is up 232%. Which I guess if you're not, I mean, it's a big number that doesn't mean a lot to a bunch of people, but essentially, around this same time last year, 100% is like you double what you did, right? Like if you sell 100% more than last time, that's double. So 200% is what? Triple? I don't know. Guys, help me with numbers.
that Stacks, you wanna take that one?
Well, like anything. Well, I guess you can see it as double or triple, but when they do like comparisons like that, and when it comes to the sales, well, one thing that pushed the sales was the pandemic, first of all.
Well, I want to get into that. I definitely want to get into that.
So with their when you're looking at double or triple, that's still pretty good for what they had last year.
And there's also the added caveat that last year there wasn't a brand new console, right? Like it was kind of nearing the end of a console generation. So
Right.
like your sales are going to slow down regardless unless you're Nintendo.
Yeah, and yeah, Nintendo is putting everybody to sleep right now.
But the reason why I even brought this up as a topic, like, it's good news for Microsoft, yes, but on the other side, like their competitor Sony have just broken the PS4 sales record. Mind you, PS4 was like the best-selling games console period by the time it was done, right? Now that the
100
PS5
million.
has come out, it beat PS4's record for sales in its first year, which stands to reason that eventually, should Sony, get enough consoles out into the world, the PS5 might do better than the PS4 and become the best-selling console on record, right? But like, wasn't it not that long ago that people were saying like, "Oh, we're gonna start moving away from like hardware sales," right? Like, the digital age is upon us. We have streaming services rearing their heads in the near future. Yet both Microsoft and Sony and Nintendo, who didn't have a report because they're always selling very well, are all selling lots of new hardware in a pandemic where, money has been tight for a lot of people. And with hardware shortages where you can't even get the amount of stock out that they normally would have, they're still breaking records and up in terms of revenue. So I'm curious what you guys think about like kind of the state of like the console market and like the hardware market for video games, because this all looks like the opposite of what I think people have been thinking it's been going since the last or previous generation before that.
I mean, 2015 was marked as the year of VR, and here we are. So if 2021 is supposed to be, now we'll all be using streaming. No, like the prediction of stuff is always usually pretty off. And like I could see the appeal of like, oh, let's get away from consoles, but like they're solid machines. It's cheaper to buy if you want a dedicated gaming system. It is cheaper to buy a console than get a computer. Like,
yes, still true.
They're
as expensive as the consoles are now, they're still cheaper than a good gaming PC.
Yeah, I can't build a PC myself for what a PS5 costs for the same level of hardware.
Mm-hmm.
Especially right now with price graphics cards, but that's
it's a whole other story.
I mean, when you look at, well, right now, another thing is chip shortage.
Mm-hmm.
There's a huge chip shortage going on right now that's going to hinder not just consoles, but everything else. And they're talking about that won't come back into the flow of the chip shortage. Things won't be normal until about another couple years. So consoles themselves still might see sporadic, at least for another year or so. Won't be like able to like go to the store and just pick one up off the shelf. Nah, it will be a while for that, with all the chip shortage and everything going on.
But the fact that when they are on the shelves, they get snatched up immediately. Do you think that that's helping it, the shortage? Like the fact that people think like, oh, I won't get a chance in the future to grab this. I need to act now.
I think because the pandemic has caused a lot more people to stay home, and I don't think people are going to venture out as quickly as people think, because it depends on what you call normal. You know, people were always making fun of gamers, saying, well, all you do is sit home and play games. Well, what were people doing the last year? It changed.
Like, look, everybody,
So,
I have a way to solve this. You gotta sit home and play video games.
you know what I mean? So when you have people have nothing to do, they couldn't go anywhere. Next best thing is the cheapest hobby has always been, in my opinion, video games. It's a cheap hobby. You know what I mean?
I disagree, but
Well,
no, I want to hear where, like, in your opinion, like, how video games are a cheap hobby.
well, when I look at other people that do like cars,
Hmm.
you know, and other collectibles is what I'm saying. Over time, like I can buy a console and it can last me 5 to 7 years, you know, playing certain games, or even if you have a older console and you still have the older games,
That's true.
you can still play
Yeah,
over a
if you're
long
patient,
period.
it can be very cheap. Yes.
Right. So just in that aspect. But I mean, the numbers, I'm not surprised because they said PS4 sold 7.6 over the same time where now PS5 is sold 7.8.
Hmm.
I mean, to me, you know, when there people are like, well, consoles aren't going to be around, that's like saying the whole disc versus not having a disc around. I think,
But
I mean,
you're saying that, but like the console makers themselves are kind of playing, like, they're splitting that line right now. Like, both of them released their new consoles with a disc version and a non-disc version, just because they don't want to be left out should someone be upset that it doesn't have a disc. But also, a lot of people don't care about the disc drive. Like, they took them off of
well,
like most like laptops and stuff nowadays, right?
yeah, a lot of laptops don't come with disc anymore. You have to buy like an external disc drive and use and hook it up that way. But in my opinion, it comes to people, and you have collectors out there that, you know, they want to have a disc in their hand. You know what I mean? Something that's valuable. You know what I mean? I will always look at it like this. Something that's digital will not have value versus something that I can have in my hand, you know,
I
when it
mean,
comes to.
you're making that argument in the world of NFTs and crypto, and
This
like,
this is true, but we look at crypto, and this is another thing people have been asking me about that, not to go off the subject, but the
no, it's fine. We have time.
volatility. But when it comes to crypto, it's very, very volatile. I always give people this example. Right now, you can't go down to like the store and buy milk with crypto. You can't do it. You can't get gas with crypto. You know what I mean? There's only very select things that people are starting to use crypto for, but you still need a special software to do a transaction, to do transactions for it. Can't just be like, well, I'm just gonna spend crypto today and buy this and that. That's um where you have major investors kind of leery in certain ways. Yes, you have companies now like Square,
Mhm.
Tesla that are buying Bitcoin, and Bitcoin does have traction, but still the matter of the fact is you just can't go anywhere and spend it. It's not viable right now. There is no conversion to a dollar, to a euro, to a ruby, you see what I'm saying? To a yen.
Mhm.
You see what I'm saying? There's really no conversion factor in crypto right now. So a lot of it is speculative. You know what I mean? So when you looking at diving into NFTs and all that, you are really playing Russian roulette, because at any time it can drop 35 to 40% in a heartbeat.
This is true.
You know what I mean? So when people ask me my opinion in that area, I'm like, if you have money to throw away, have at it. If you make a nice little change, so be it. But know the risks when you enter in that category. Do your homework before you even step foot in that category, because it's not a get rich quick deal.
Right.
Yes, me personally, I don't have crypto. I own Coinbase, which is the company that deals with the trading of crypto. And Coinbase has been around a long time. It's one of the apps that almost everybody uses in order to trade crypto.
Yeah, is what I use.
So I don't want to own crypto. I want to own the company that's supplying the trade, because for me it's less risk.
So
You know what I mean?
to try to make an attempt to spin this back towards the topic we were talking about, would you then say that investing or participating in the digital side of gaming is similarly unsafe? Because like I you make a lot of points in like kind of the instability of like digital currency, but like does that really affect how you should look at like digital commodities? Like, sure, you don't own a physical copy of the game, but you still have access to the game, and the amount of time you spend with the game, while in its digital version, will probably be the same you would have spent whether it was a disc or not. You just won't have that thing to put on your shelf or in a box to store. And most of those discs don't accrue value over time. You know, usually they become worthless over time, even if you have it in pristine condition, because it was like a mass marketed game, you know, it doesn't have like collector's value, et cetera, et cetera. So like, is there really much being lost in that case?
Well, I guess that would be a personal deal, my opinion.
Okay.
Because if you look at it, like if your internet goes out, you can't use the cloud, which means you will not be able to get your stuff.
Yeah, you're right.
If I have a disc, you're out of luck, but I can still play, depending on the game.
Yeah, depending on the game nowadays, because
Depending on
a lot of them are still tied to an internet. Like you have a physical disc because they know you want that, but the game is pretty much still digital. Like you have to access all the same services that you would if the game were only digital. So like, it's such a tiny difference.
Right, but that tiny difference, you know, for a lot of people, like let's look at it. Not everybody has the same type of internet. And I think that's the very big issue. Not everybody has fiber or the very high speed internet that people that they're trying to push out now. And until not just the United States, but the world has access to, if the majority of people have access to high internet, you're gonna always have people wanting discs, because that's very unfair. Like you live in a city that has real good internet, that you're not gonna have a problem playing the game or downloading a game, versus somebody in the sticks. Now I'm in the sticks, but I have decent internet. But somebody in the sticks who doesn't have that type of internet, that can take 4 or 5 days or more to download a game, or whenever they play the game, they get kicked out because their internet is crap. So to be fair, it's more of, well, if I put this disc out and they can play out with little internet, well, that's how they balance that out, in my opinion, is how I see it. You know, and this is why I say, like, you'll never fully get rid of discs, because until everybody has a chance to where the internet is at least covered a good amount, you know, and they're trying to get there in certain areas, don't get me wrong, but it's still a lot of work to run that cable, run this here, run that there, to whatever, through neighborhoods, this and that. So I think that's just the big issue right there, is not having the accessibility to good internet, which is always going to keep discs around.
And
you know,
furthermore, that exact same problem would also keep hardware around, right? Yeah, because you couldn't have a cloud-based console system or a streaming-based system like Stadia or Luna without that internet infrastructure to back it up.
That's why Stadia failed, in my opinion.
I mean, I have some other reasons as to why Stadia failed, but that is, that's probably one of them. Yes,
they got a few.
But no, that's a really good point. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of flying in the face. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jesse.
I was gonna say, I'm just really interested because I do think there is value in physical media, but I have a question, and I'm gonna say words, and I'm not really sure what question I'm asking, so I'm just gonna hear what you say. So what about where we are at with physical media, where, yeah, I can buy a copy of Cyberpunk 2077 for PS4 on launch day, but if I just put that into a PS4 right now and try and play it, what game am I actually going to play? Is it going to fully function? Do I need, in a time when day one patches are so important to a game working, what value does the physical media have?
And I think this is where PlayStation, I don't know if you guys looked at it, but PlayStation is actually closing the PlayStation store for the Vita or PS3. And eventually what they're doing is they're going to funnel everybody to the PS5 where you won't be able to do certain things on the old PlayStations. So all the updates and all, just like how you're talking about, yes, it will be gone and you will not be able to do certain things. Now, when it comes to patches and this also falls on
Yeah,
PlayStation
real quick, I just want
and
to. Yeah,
Xbox.
Honey Money is saying they did reverse that decision. So like they said that they were going to close those stores for the Vita and the PS3, and then went back on it after I guess a bunch of people complained, or at least a bunch of people went on the store and bought stuff. Is my guess. They was like, oh, this is still bringing us money. So they did
Right.
reverse that
So
decision.
if they did do that, it was a money deal because you have here you go with the digital versus not digital, because you have people that spent so much money on a digital on their digital, and they will not be able to get those games forwarded to the newer systems. So what do they have to do? They have to leave the store there for them so they can play their games.
Right, and
So
that's that. PlayStation kind of shot themselves in the foot in that way because they made it so difficult for themselves to actually get those older games to function going forward on other consoles. Because one, they probably didn't want them to, and two, they just built a super complicated architecture with the PS. Like the PS3 is like this big roadblock. I feel like between like the generations before it itself and the generations after it. Like the PS3 is the problem, I think. But in general, yeah, they did reverse that, and that's the point Jesse was making was that the disc that you get is fundamentally a different game than the game that the makers eventually release out to the world. So if you can't play that game, all it is a physical copy of a representation of the game that you bought and not actually useful. So like if you make games like that going forward, like Cyberpunk isn't the only example of that. There are tons of developers who do that exact same thing. They all release day one patches or they release game breaking bug fixes for future installments that are digital add-ons to the code of the physical disc that you have. You're never gonna actually get the game because the game's always changing, and you can only change the game like this because of the digital side of things.
right, and this is where like I said before, it's gonna be up to how loud people scream versus what the developers are gonna do, because people will make. We've already seen it where people do have an effect on how these companies do their business, make their games. So if people scream loud enough, then you know they can probably make changes where, well, a lot of the times, a lot of the changes they make is the betterment of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So, if they find any glitches or somebody is exploiting something in the game, they try to close that loophole. And really, in that aspect, depending on the game, you can't really do anything about it if it just gets to a point where uh, uh you can't get the bugs to fix or anything like that or any of the updates. That's just when you just out of luck in for that particular game. If you know that if you play that after a while where you can't get updates or something like that, like Jesse's mentioning, then what can you do? Find something else to play, I guess. But it
No, you're
also
right.
comes, but it also comes back to, like I said before, people having better internet access. Not everybody has that access, and over time, you're going to see developers try to push the envelope money wise, and people that are gonna get left behind are the ones that are gonna be like, well, this is kind of unfair. How am I gonna, unless you're gonna come out there and put billions of dollars of cable line running out to my, wherever I'm out in the sticks.
Which
You
Google
know what I
should have
mean?
done.
You know what I mean? So unless they're gonna do that, there's always gonna be a disparity with, well, what's the best we can do for this game for the masses? Who's gonna get left out? What can we do? And over time, how is the landscape gonna change? Because obviously there's always going to be better advances when it comes to internet and digital. But the fact is that they just need to make it fair for everybody.
Yeah, and I
And
guess having at least a physical version gives you some comfort in that. Though I personally, and we can move off of this topic, I guess, like after this point, but I feel like it's kind of a ruse because like they're kind of going about that in the chat right now. Jeff saying like, since all hard copies have to be downloaded anyway, isn't that the same thing? Like, because yeah, in a way, the way your console works when you get a disc is it downloads the data off the disc, and that's installed on the console. So like the disc only authenticates the fact that you have the right to play the data that the console already has. When you download it, it treats that same data as a downloaded version, which means you just don't need a disc. It just runs off the console. So like the way they have it set up now is like it's all digital. The disc is just how you get it. And like to your point, Fast Axe, that might be easier for someone who doesn't have good internet to just download all that data off the web or whatnot. But it still works the same way in that you're playing a digital thing, and the physical version of the thing doesn't actually matter all that much. Like in the technical aspect.
Right. Like compared to how back in the day you'd be able to play a whole game just right off the disc, regardless.
Mm-hmm.
But now they've made it where they've put everything in the cloud.
Yeah.
Where it's like, so you want me to go to the cloud, and if my internet goes out, I can't play nothing. I'm gonna be stuck here reading a book.
Yeah, and Lampy's saying the disc often doesn't even do that. It often requires an internet connection to validate the license too. So like even off the disc, yeah, you still need to connect to the internet to get that disc to do whatever it needs to do and install on your console. And Honey Money says, I just like collecting, which is a valid point.
Right, yeah.
Right, yeah.
I'm a collector.
That's a valid reason to have physical media. But I mean, how many companies are going to cater to that specific need? I don't know. If they're loud enough, maybe they will. But yeah, okay. That went off on a pretty big tangent, but I'm fine with it. We'll move on to our final topic, which is a bigger story and like kind of a side story related to it in a way. I kind of just threw that on the list for context, I guess. So we may not even need to mention it. But Activision CEO Bobby Kotick, well known as one of the highest paid CEOs, period, not just in video games, but like period, of any like big company. Bobby Kotick makes a lot of money based on how much his company makes, has decided to, or rather his board decided for him that they would have his pay. So the numbers say here, Bobby Kotick was making about 1.7 million a year. So half of that, he's at what, 800 something,
860 something like that.
yeah, 860 something $1,000, which is a six-figure salary, very high six-figure salary. Anyway, so I think he'll be fine. He's not going to be hurting too much. But even with this caveat, he still stands to make 200% more than that if the company hits specific sales milestones. So the next couple of games that they release, if they hit whatever milestones that are in the contract, he still gets bonuses on top of that very high annual salary. So all of this comes in the wake of, a lot of his board and a lot of just critiques in the industry saying like, this guy makes too much money. Activision laid off about 1,000 people in the last couple of years. They closed a couple of studios and they folded some other smaller ones into some bigger ones to namely work on Call of Duty, which also happened to Toys for Bob, who were the devs who used to make all the Skylander stuff. They very recently made the new Crash Bandicoot game, Crash 4. I guess it didn't meet Activision sales standards. So there were reports earlier that that studio got laid off. But apparently they just folded them into Call of Duty, which is kind of like you're sending your devs to the mines or something. Is what it sounds like to me. It's like, oh, you don't do good enough, we're gonna send you to the Call of Duty backup team. You better make sure your game
send
sells.
You to the yard,
right? So like, what is you guys' feelings on this move from Activision as a whole? Because I don't think this was Bobby Kotick's idea. Like, I don't think he went, hey, I make too much money, let's do something about this. It seems like people voted this into reality, and are still somehow having a hard time stopping him from being paid an exorbitant amount of money. But I mean, how do you guys feel Activision is doing? Is any of this kind of pay or behavior worth it in your eyes, I guess? And I can already maybe guess what some of your thoughts might be, but I'm interested to know.
Well, I would look at it from a stock perspective.
Okay.
Remember, shareholders have a voice in a company, which for the directors, when you got shareholders, or the directors have to make a move. The shareholders can vote them boys out. So if you're having pay you get paid based on the performance, I think that is I wouldn't say it's a better fit, but it's a good gauge.
Mm-hmm.
But if somebody, I mean, you're looking at Call of Duty now, mind you, I'm not really a big Call of Duty fan. I don't see why you bringing out so many Call of Duties at 2 Call of Duties a year. Like, who wants that? At least come out with.
You're saying who wants that? Millions and millions of people, like every year.
Well, the way I look at it is like it seems like every year you bring out 2 Call of Duties, but then you have same people that buy it are the same people that are complaining about it. Like, it's just like the last one. You haven't made no changes. Like, you see what I'm saying? So for a guy to get paid that much, I'm like, really? Like, okay. Compared to the industry itself, what are other CEOs getting paid? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
How does this benefit the company? You know, it strikes me that guy gets paid that much compared to the norm, the baseline. You know what I mean?
I mean, and not for nothing, like,
me,
Activision does make a lot of money. They make billions every year from what they do.
right.
So, like, I guess they have that money to burn, but, like, why on one person?
Why not put it back into your R&D to make better games, or at least, you have all these layoffs, so you're saving money by laying off people, or you're gonna consolidate. Like, you have 9. I was looking it up. Like, you got 9 studios working on Call of Duty, and you have people still complaining about cheaters and this and that. You got 9 studios on a game. Like, I mean, or invest in better engineers or something. Use that money and put it back into your development teams.
Yeah, I don't know if any of the reports kind of went into where the saved money is intended to go.
No, it didn't. It just said that this is what, because I was actually looking up that. I'm like, so where's this money going after
Right.
cutting his, are you going to put it back into development teams, all these teams you have? Or you're just going to buy back stock, raise your stock? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's a legitimate question, because the people who had the power to have his stock in the first place may have just been jealous that they were making as much money as the person they put in charge of the company. They could have been like, look, can you not soak up so much of this revenue so that we can split it amongst ourselves for a change? That might have been what happened. Like, we don't really know, right? So, like, the fact that he's being paid so much has been, like, a long-standing issue to begin with. And the fact that there were other higher-ups in the company who were upset at how much he was being paid makes me feel of two minds, because, one, they somehow made it that way in the first place. Like, who makes the rules of, like, who gets bonuses and for what reasons do you get bonuses? The board, right?
The board of directors are the ones that elevate the CEO. So, when it comes to shares, it all depends on who in the company has the most shares. Where, if the board of directors have more weight than the actual CEO when it comes to shares, board of directors can vote out the CEO.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it usually is, depending on if you have a co-founder that owns 51% of the company. You know what I mean? Something like that, where they have more power than the board of directors.
Right.
But usually it's the board of directors that say, well, the CEO can get this, 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 and this. So the only people that can blame themselves is the board of directors that voted this CEO for his payment package.
Right. And it's not like, it doesn't seem like they're, like, mad at what Kotick is doing. And again, the company is profitable. Like, they make money every single year, right? So I don't think they're like, oh, we need to get rid of this guy. They're like, we like what you're doing. We're just getting a lot of flack for how much money we're giving you.
Well, they can do it like most people. Have your bonuses, like, let's say you pay him like what they're doing now. They cut his
annual salary.
his annual salary, but put it in a performance package with
Right.
certain things, so that if those goals do get met, then he's gonna get paid that money anyway, as long as the goals are met. So I mean,
And
it's no
that
different.
could be where that half pay actually went, is in an
A
account
bonus,
for the bonuses, like should he meet those
right?
goals, right? Yeah, so like this really does seem like kind of like a magic trick, like shuffling cards. Like it doesn't seem like this is meant to do like a Nintendo execs did this years ago, I want to say. Like when the Wii U kind of was a disaster in terms of sales, Nintendo execs were like, "Hey, we're cutting our pay to like kind of feed into the company." Like they specifically said, it's because we failed with this thing here, so we're taking money out of what we would have been paid to kind of compensate for the lost sales because we're the ones who made the decisions to do this thing, right? And they all just supported us. So like this doesn't feel like that in any way. I mean, am I? What about you, Jesse? Like, what is your take on it? Because I,
It really doesn't feel like that at all. I mean, I know very little about business. I'm a struggling game designer and writer. What do I know about making billions of dollars a year? The thing that bothers me about this,
Mhm.
and that's not directly addressed, so I don't want to say this is how it is. Screw them.
of course,
But like, okay, so his money is tied to performances now. Sure, but what do the people who are actually making the games get when they work harder, other than their boss makes more money?
Yep, there it is.
yeah,
Like, and
Yep.
that's if the head of the company or Bobby Pockets is like, I want to make more money, I'm gonna have crunch time. I'm gonna force people to do more work. I'm going to make it harder for them so that they do more work so that this is better. But yeah, what do they get out of it? It seems like it's encouraging bad behavior.
And I think that's the not just in this instance, but across, when you look at technology as a whole, when you look at businesses as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
The
Yeah,
CEO is gonna make money, but the guy at the bottom of the barrel ain't gonna make nothing.
this is
If if
not special to this industry or
right,
this,
right.
yeah,
this
so
situation.
it's definitely a common occurrence, because the way that these companies make money depending or increase their bottom line is consolidation, layoffs, and they try to squeeze every bit that they can out of their workers without proper compensation. Hence why a lot of these companies try to avoid unionization.
Yep.
Why?
Yep.
Because if it happens in certain areas, but you look at it twofold. Unionization doesn't guarantee a lot of things, which means that means the cost will have to go to the consumer to make that up. So there's always, you get your way, but this is what's gonna happen.
Yeah, and I've had an issue with that in the past. I remember there was
So
a story about like back when that that monster was running the country. And all the sanctions on like exports from China and whatnot, and it was gonna dramatically raise the cost of like consoles and whatnot because of the components that it would they would use their export and whatnot. It was never the case that the companies would absorb that cost. It was always, hey, if you
ever
guys make us pay more for these
people
Chinese
will pay more.
parts, then all of America's gonna have to pay more money. Sorry, but that's how it is. I'm like, why is that the option? Like they still somehow get to keep the exact amount of money they make, which is more money than most of the rest of the country. But we all, as bottom level consumers, have to pay more. Like it gets passed on to the consumer. It's all. It is again. This is a tangent, but it's all just capitalism. Like that's how that works, right?
Yep.
Yep.
And it is
And
intertwined with the games industry because games industry is a business,
yeah,
a successful one.
it made a lot of money last year. A
Yeah, it
lot.
did.
Right? Yeah.
A lot.
There's a lot of money in
So
games. Yeah.
so when you're looking at restrictions and just the bottom line, the cost is just going to go down to the consumer. and the guy that's developing the games never really gets, or the teams never really get paid. It's either you work or you get fired or you get reconstructed into this other team so we can do better. So, I mean, is it fair? That all depends on what you call fair, because when it comes to capitalism, there is no fair. It's either you're here or you're there. If you're in the middle, eventually you're gonna have to make some headway to go up here, or you're gonna fall down there. That's just how it works.
And I don't want to I don't want to act like game devs are somehow all like near slave labor or something. Like, there are game devs who make a lot of money. Like, honestly. And in general, maybe not in the indie scene, but like for like a lot of these AAA companies at the very least, like even like your entry level like game devs, I think they make like a healthy salary, right? It's just the disproportion. Like, even if they're making like a good amount of money for where they're living at, you know, they're fine. The people above them make so much more money, like so much more money than they will ever need, right? And like, games cost a lot of money to make, but somehow the people at the very, very top, like the couple of those people, make so much more money than what it takes to make those games. Like, or at least that's what it feels like, right?
In my opinion, and I've looked at this in the past years, and I've seen companies start to do this more and more and more. They're starting to tie the company's stock and giving stock options to their workers, which in my opinion is a good deal for long term. Because now, as long as the company does good and you will have stock in the company, you will make money. Not
Right, and
only
you
you're
also have a
getting
vested
paid,
interest
right?
in making the
So
company profitable
okay, so
because
you're
you
gonna pay
invested in it.
me at, yeah, so you're gonna pay me at this level down here. All right, let me get some stock options where I can possibly years down the road cash out and be like, well, the companies did good. When I retire, I can either take out that money or still have it there. You know what I mean? It's a lot of the times they do that as compensation for their employees, which I think is a good deal. Yes, when you talk about disproportion, yeah, that gap will always be there. But being able to invest into a company's stock, in my opinion, or having it as an option to give to your workers, it doesn't close the gap, but it's good for them to do that.
It's
And I've seen
better
more
than
and
what
more
they
companies,
have been doing, essentially.
right? Because a lot of companies aren't just gonna give out money and bonuses here and there. But if the stock, if you're giving me company stock and the stock keeps rising, you know what I mean? Okay, that just means I can cash out if I need to, if I need money. You know what I mean? So,
But I
but
mean,
I've seen that more and more.
wouldn't that also mean though? And this might be reason why they don't do this. Like, if you have like a very big pool of staff, like a company like Activision might have, right? If you have enough stock options on like the ground floor, couldn't they kind of act as an entity to then like vote in terms of like the direction of the company as a whole? Like, if there's enough of them organized together, like that's a possibility, right? Like, owning stock means you have a say, like you get to be in those earnings calls and stuff, right?
Yes, and there are three options. A lot of times companies have, now, all right, I'm gonna get into a little detail.
All right, we're gonna learn today.
So, all right, sometimes companies have three stock options like A, B, and C, and sometimes these stock options are worth more. Like certain stock options, like if you do A, it's like 1 vote, B gives you 10 votes, or something lunacy like
Uh
that.
huh.
So those different stock options, if you're willing to pay to get those options, your voice is going to be louder. So usually when a company would give stock options, they're not giving those high end options
Okay.
to their employees.
Gotcha.
They're giving them the 1 share, 1 vote type deal, not the, 1 share, 20 votes. You know what I mean?
Right.
So depending on the option that these companies are giving, which is usually the lowest one, this is why where you have the board of directors now, where people can vote in the board of directors, or the shareholders can vote the board of directors, depending on the type of share, you know what I mean, that you have within the company.
Gotcha.
So, but usually in a basic sense, a lot of people usually just get the common share. They don't really look at the other type of shares that there is with the company. So
Right. And
one thing
chat,
I try to
I'm sorry, chat was just mentioning some of the other kind of stock options that are out there. Lampy saying that stock options don't get voting rights for staff, or at least some don't. Yeah, Lampy, that's what Lampy's saying. Spazawell says, I work for a company that had stock-based retirement program. In exchange, you got PTO instead of vacation, no sick time, outrageous health insurance, piss poor wages, etc. And it was a retirement program. You could not cash out ahead of retirement or quitting.
right, because a lot of them have what's called a lockup.
Right.
So
So like
you're like,
they police the stock options that they do give you, because I guess like you're
yes,
saying, like it would be a pretty powerful thing to give to your employees, right? So I guess that's why a lot of companies are like steering away from it or giving you the illusion of letting you in on that aspect. But
right, but
then,
they still got to give you some. Me personally, every company is different in how they do their options or how they do their stock. So instead of just like I said, instead of outright giving you bonuses, they give you stock options
mm,
for some of them. So
okay. Any final thoughts on this topic on Activision, Bobby Kotick's paycheck? Nope. All right. Well,
We should all share more.
you're right. Words to live by. That's going to actually wrap things up for the Sigma Show this week. I hope you guys enjoyed. Jesse, where can people find you if they're looking for you on the internet?
Oh man, they can find me in lots of places. Always at Rexicon Jesse. Your Twitter, your Reddits, your Discords. Also Twitch, twitch.tv/Rexicon Jesse. I get to play some more stuff tomorrow. For behind schedule.
Nice.
11 a.m. to 2 p.m. And I'll be doing that Tuesday as well, same time. Because I got more of that game to play.
That
Omnicron, the David Bowie game.
That game seems really interesting.
It's wild, and I am enjoying it. But so I feel like I have not made a lot of progress, and I got a lot more to do for that game. And then last week I did the movie show with Jack and Darren on The Escapist. So you can check out that podcast if you want to see that.
Yes, it was a good show.
It was.
All
right. The Fat Stacks, where can people find you on the internet, and what would you be showing them once they do find you?
you guys can find me on Twitter, IG, Twitch, just like the name The Fat Stacks, YouTube. I do a lot of, like I said, financial videos, gaming clips, stuff like that. Variety streamer. So I'm just trying to educate people the financial freedom. A lot of the things that I try to teach now is because a lot of of us weren't taught at a younger age, and a lot of us were taught back this in high school. A lot of us were probably a whole lot richer now. So, but I want to get more people educated, as much as possible so that they can not only help themselves but help others. I mean, reach one, teach one. I mean,
right.
So you guys can find me. I'm always, if you guys want to message me anytime, I do respond back as quickly as I can. So ask away. You guys can always find me. I'm always usually on Monday through Thursday. Like I said, I do the financial videos on Tuesdays, 7:30 Central Time. I usually do it for about an hour unless people ask questions. Fine, man.
Cool. Tommy was asking, can we buy Sigma Show stocks? Yeah, you just gotta hit the subscribe button and buy up those subs. That's how you invest in the Sigma Show. But you can find me on Twitter as well at SigmaGears9. Share the stream around. Like if you like the show, try to put your friends on. Be like, hey, I listened to this talk show on Twitch. The recaps show up on the Open Party YouTube channel the day after. So you can subscribe to the Open Party gaming channel on YouTube if you want to, watch those video versions. And a podcast version also exists if you'd rather to listen to us than to watch our pretty faces. Just search on your favorite podcast network or whatever for The Sigma Show. It'll probably be there unless you use something super obscure. But even then, you just search for the RSS feed. You'll probably find it. It's there. I want to thank everybody in the chat for contributing to the conversation, as they always do. Really appreciate that. I want to thank my two guests once more. And that's going to do it for episode 26. See you guys. Oh, we won't see you guys next week. Next week is Mother's Day, and I'm going to go visit my mom. So there won't be a Sigma show. There probably also won't be a Super Smash Sunday. But 2:30 p.m. Eastern today on the Open Party Twitch, we will be doing Super Smash Sunday. So come through, get your Smash on, as the kids like to say, right? That's what kids say nowadays. Get your Smash on. I
guess.
Probably. I don't know. But thanks, everybody. Bye.
Appreciate y'all, man. Y'all be safe.